So, hi! Hello! I am so happy to be here today. I'm tickled. VidCon's like my favorite part of the year because I spend a lot of time in a hole, making videos, and then we don't get to get out enough and to talk to people who like our show. And so this is really special. And with everything else that you guys could be doing this morning, like all the other amazing panels, it means a lot that you're here.
This is awesome. Definitely.
And this is totally new for Tom.
Yeah, I've never been to VidCon. I've met some Brain Scoop fans since I started in March, but this is awesome.
Yeah.
People watch the show, I see that, but to meet folks, it's pretty nifty.
Yeah. So we want to have like a pretty informal Q&A, and if you guys got questions, we might have answers and anecdotes, and I'll probably go off on a tangent about how Dimetrodon's not dinosaurs. It happened last night like 3 times already. Can't get enough of it. So, do we have questions? Yeah. Both more. It's been good. I'm running entirely off of adrenaline for like the last 24 hours. So that's exciting. Yeah, it takes me a long time to get ready in the morning. That was the majority of my morning was having Tom curl my hair.
I didn't know that was part of the job. I'd never done it before, but I'm pretty impressed with my work.
Yeah. He picked out good shit. No, I'm good. I'm good. It's good to be here. So, yeah. Thanks. That was a very considerate question. How are you?
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm doing good. I've never been to California before, so.
Really?
Yeah, never.
No way!
So this is my first time. On LA, I'm going to go see the Natural History Museum, go to tar pits, so I'm pretty excited.
Tar pits are sweet. We had a meetup at the Natural History Museum on Wednesday. Were any of you there? No.
Missed it.
It was fun. It wasn't that much fun. That's cool. That was. I wanted to give people a chance who couldn't make it to VidCon to hang out and stuff. So yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm going to the lab in August to be started. But what was it like moving from the University of Montana to the Chicago Field Museum? Like the size difference?
Oh my gosh. The size, it's like multiplied by 1,000. It's insane. Congratulations on going to UM. I really hope that you'll go visit that little collection. Please do. They need some help. No, it's been insane. It's been totally mind-blowing. The University of Montana Zoological Museum could be confined in from here back to the camera who's apparently recording this. That's it was a really small room, and everything you could visibly and tangibly feel how many specimens were in that collection. That's crazy. Has that been up there this whole time? Yeah, and so you could 24,000. That's a sizable number. But it's if I was given enough time, I could have touched and interacted with all 24,000 of those things. The Field Museum has 26 million artifacts. 26 million across 4 major disciplines, and within that, so the entomology department, the insects, that's broken up it's broken up into invertebrate zoology, and then you have insects, and then within the insects you have the beetles, and in the beetles you might have one specimen that is a vial that has 20 insects in it. So just the sheer numbers of things is incredible. But I don't even know if I could really well articulate how insane it is, because you're working with people who are the top professional what's the word I'm trying to think of, experts in their field, and it's if I have a question about anything, I can you can guarantee that there's somebody who's got a very well researched and well articulated answer to even the most basic of questions. So that's awesome. It's living inside of an encyclopedia in that way.
But it's like an encyclopedia you get to touch and interact with every day. So
Yeah.
The Dimetrodon skull from the Dimetrodon episode, afterwards I was like, can I hold that? He's like, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
This is 250 million years old. Holy cow.
Yeah. You just that feeling never gets old. I never want to be jaded to that. And like, no, it's just a pterosaur. I already saw like 12 pterosaurs. The pterosaur quota. But so that's amazing. It's like mind blowing. It's a little difficult to like, is this real? Like, what is air? I deal with that a lot. So yeah, long story short, it's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah.
Okay. What's a typical day like for you at the Field Museum?
I don't think I've ever had the same day twice at the Field Museum. So, which is wonderful because if I had the same kind of day where I come in and I check in and I, do X, Y, and Z and then I go home, like, nah, that's pretty lame. There's not much of a YouTube show in that. I mean, we get to work, Tom and I go get coffee. Like, that's a pretty good standard.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's what we do. We have our coffee. But then...
But it's next to Sue the T-Rex.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
We're like, this morning, let's go hang out and see what Sue's up to. Because it's just like, it never gets old. This is the largest and most complete Tyrannosaur specimen in the world. And it's like in the front door of my office, essentially. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Come to work and see that. Like, go and have coffee and sit and enjoy one of the dioramas. And after that, like, I answer a lot of emails. Like, there are way more emails involved in this job than are anticipated. Which is also isn't that exciting. But we break it up by like, let's go see what Janet Voigt's doing today, or, let's go hang out with Grayson up in Insects, and those kind of like that ability to just walk around the third floor, the research floor, like you just run into people who you're like, hey, Bill Stanley, what's up today? And he's like, I'm just, documenting and writing up a report for a new species of shrew that nobody's ever heard of before. And you're like, this is insane!
Or like yesterday, or the other day, we were walking around Emporium Rose doing some study with ants to track climate change in terms of their migration patterns. You want to know? Well, this is going to be a new Drink Scoop episode down the road. So it's just amazing. Like every day we talk to a different scientist, researcher, and we get a new idea to do something on the show.
Yeah, which is good and bad because like now we're like committed for like the next 12 years.
It's awesome. I'm cool with that.
This is great. It's Drink Scoop forever. Yeah.
When Hank first came to you about starting the channel, how long did you take in like preparing, writing, or whatever for that first episode?
For the first, like, the tour episode?
I've been watching you since the first episode. And,
Oh, man.
every episode you make is amazing.
You guys are the lifers. I had no idea what I was doing. I have a little bit of an idea of what I'm doing now, where it's I've started to slowly figure it out, but like, it's to be kind of launched into this career is insane. I had like 2 weeks of time of planning, like this whole thing. And it was a really pivotal kind of moment when, after the Thoughts from Dead Animals video went up on Vlog Brothers, that Hank emailed me. He's like, hey, you're good at this. Like, can you handle it? I'd like to help you go ahead and see where we can take this idea of doing a natural history museum show. But like, this is a commitment. Like, this is a total lifestyle change. Are you ready? And I was like, go handle it. And from there, like, I just didn't even know what we were going to do. So the first episode, Michael Aranda and I sat down and I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, what are we going to do? And he's like, well, why don't we just do a tour of the museum? And I'm like, I've done a tour of this museum before. I can handle that. So from there, it kind of started to evolve. And it's actually kind of fun. We have a bunch of episodes, not a bunch, we have like 3 or 4 episodes that we filmed that were never edited or uploaded. So like we did an episode about the Malm whale. I don't know if you guys know, I'll tell you about the Malm whale sometime. That's a crazy story. It's the first taxidermied whale in the world that happened in like 1851. Somebody thought it would be a good idea to, do you know this story? Yeah, Wilhelm Malm. Yeah, you're like, I don't know, so the whale story. I'll get into that later, the whale story. But anyway, so it was just trying to figure out like, what do people know and not know about natural history museums, and what kind of stories can we explore to help, plant that idea in people's minds that like, there's a lot that happens behind those doors. It's overwhelming. You're dealing with 25 million things. Like, how do you pick one first? I don't know. Let's do ants. It's kind of my mentality. But yeah, I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
Is there anything at the Field Museum that you've discovered is like your new obsession or new favorite thing that you wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise?
Oh yeah, that's like everything. And I think that's I'm trying to give more concrete examples other than just like everything is awesome and it's all really cool.
No, I guess one thing, we're working with Janet Boyd, who's a scientist and researcher at the museum, on her studies of deep sea octopus. And what's the name of that deep sea submersible?
Alvin.
She's been in that a couple of times, like Bomb of the Ocean Floor. And she has footage from her expeditions that we will then like put into the episode. You know, Emily and I do with Janet. And just seeing the specimens, these things that are like miles deep, and you never see the light of day. I mean, just like getting to touch them, think about them in the context of like nature and science and all that's wondrous. It's just, I mean, we're just so lucky to get to hang out with these things.
I know. And hang out with Janet and have a beer with her on Friday at happy hour.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this woman is, Janet Boyd is amazing for like a multitude of reasons.
She's my hero.
Yeah, she's my hero too. Like her and Corey, like I have too many heroes. That's a good problem to have. But when Janet's going on these expeditions, like Alvin is one of I think 5 deep sea submersibles in the world, and they've been in operation for like 50 or 60 years. Like that was the last time 50 or 60 years ago was when the government, like all world governments thought that deep sea exploration was going to be a good idea, and they haven't thought about it since. So we're really fortunate that, you know, we have Alvin that still functions. Actually, she's on it right now.
Yeah.
She's off the Pacific Northwest coast, like looking for octopuses. And every single time she goes on one of these expeditions, she discovers something new to science. And not just one thing. Like, on one expedition, she described 20 new species of boring clams.
Holy crap.
Not like, clams. Wood-eating, wood-boring clams. And people for all of human history here, we're talking like, she's changing conceptions that we have about that kind of biodiversity down there. Like for all of human history, people like there's no life down at the bottom of the ocean. There's no light, so there's no light. There's no photosynthesis. There's no plant matter. There aren't people that we know.
That's a scoop.
That's pretty scoop. They said no, there's no way life could exist down there. And Janet Boyd's like, guess what? Deep sea, deep floor vents, they're a thing. Like that's Janet. Janet taught us that about the deep sea vents and everything coming out from the. I can't even handle it right now. So just having those kind of experiences and opportunities, I mean, we have the best job in the world. We really do. It's pretty sweet. It was a good time. I don't know where I was going with that. I just feel free to not let me get derailed.
Okay, I'll try.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do at the Field Museum?
My favorite thing, just be there every day. Just go and hang out. I love prep lab adventures. I've been spending some time in the bird division because, believe it or not, preparing birds is one of the most impossible things I've ever done. It is so challenging to be able to skin a bird and preserve it for the collection. And you're doing it with people who are experts, the best people in the world are at the Field Museum. So that's honestly one of my favorite things to do, is take an afternoon and just hang out in one of those labs, because you can't schedule the kind of conversations you end up having with these research staff. We've got Tom Noski, who's our resident taxidermist, and he's got a mustache that rivals Tom's.
That's pretty impressive.
Tom Noski's awesome, and he's just he never graduated from college. He dropped out of college. He lived in a park and ate pigeons for a while. He's got a crazy story. He's entirely self-taught.
God.
And he's he is the modern day Carl Akeley. He's phenomenal, and he'll just come over and he'll just start telling you stuff about a certain species of bird migration you never even knew about, and then it's just amazing conversations happen up there. So that's my favorite.
Yeah, I think what's cool about that prep lab experience is that when you see Emily on camera dissecting things, she's been studying that for a while, working with the experts. This isn't something that you just go into willy-nilly. You're practicing for the birds. They're well, before you do an episode, you need to do this 10 times. And so that's part of Emily's job, which is an amazing thing, because she's becoming an expert. She's learning this process and then showing the whole world, this audience, these amazing things.
Yeah, and that's fun. I don't remember how many I've done at this point.
At 8 or 9, I feel
8 or 9.
You're almost there.
I'm almost there. I'm almost it's I got my bird skinning training wheels and I'm about ready to come off.
You almost got your patch.
Yeah, I got my badge. But the really cool thing about that too is like every single bird is different. You would think like, okay, I've done, I don't know, like 8 grackles at this time. Like a grackle is one of those obnoxious, like bobby-headed like birds with big yellow eyes and black and iridescent. They're so annoying. But you would think that one grackle would be like one is all the same, and they're not. And they come in, and you'll find like weird things in the reproductive tracts, or you'll find like a female has eggs that have been fertilized and they're growing and they're about ready to be laid. It's insane. They have like 8 eggs on, like, and they're all like marble size, and you're just like, this is an incredible like moment in time that this bird died, and it had a history, and it had mated, and it was gonna bring life in the world. It's just like these existential moments. Or like one will come in and we recover like a shot in its head, and like somebody shot this bird. And it's like, who did it? Yeah, solve this mystery. You become very invested in the individual life of these specimens, and then multiply that by 25 million, and it's like, just I gotta take a nap at the end of the day. Yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah.
Where do you get your earrings?
Target. I don't have a one place. It's been a collection over many years, like decades of my life, where every time I go to a museum or store and they have like jewelry, I'm like, does it have animals on it? Tom is my personal shopper. He's got a really good Pinterest board.
I actually don't have that, but Emily has an amazing collection of animal T-shirts. So I've always admired that about you.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate that. You've got some pretty cool shirts too.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that we started at the field recently was a field softball team.
16-inch softball.
So Chicago is a weird place in the sense that the softball they play is with a like melon ball. You don't play with a glove. I'm new to Chicago. At first I thought it was a joke. But I wanted to play softball and hang out with all the scientists and play sports with scientists, which is extremely nerdy and cool. And so I designed a T-shirt for the team. It's like a softball comet hitting a dinosaur.
Brachiosaurus. So it is cool. I'll let you ask your other question later, Rich. We need to talk about this softball. So, what I do, or what I was doing in our working with the communications department at the Field Museum, we're trying to figure out better ways that we can integrate like front-end staff with research staff, since we all work in the same institution with the same goals and missions. So you have people who work in like facilities who don't really get to know what the people on the research, the research side of it's doing, and it behooves us to integrate our staff and departments more. So I was like, man, we've got to get an intramural team going. So it was myself and Tom and another person in human resources. We're like, yeah, let's have a softball team. Let's get this together. And then the president, we took it to Richard, the president of the museum. He's like, yeah, I'd pay for that. So he helped us fund one team, and then we had so many people, we had to get another team. And then
nobody's won a game yet. Really embarrassing.
Surprise, surprise! The world's best paleontologist is not here. Come on. Strikes out. So we have these 2 really pretty fun teams that are like a good mix of science staff and like communications, institutional advancement, like fundraising staff, and then like me and Tom. But Tom's on the dinosaurs, and I'm on the meteors.
And we played Monday night.
Yeah, head to head. Yeah, I keep joking we're going to call it the Cretaceous Mass Extinction Event. One of us will win. There will be one win.
We're going to reset this.
Yeah. But it's pretty cool because somebody who's like, Jim Holstein from our Meteorized from Space episode, like he's our coach, He's like, Coach Holstein. And I'm like, and I keep giving him crap about it because he's a terrible pitcher. Like, he just falls short every time.
This is being recorded, so make sure he sees that.
I'm really sorry, Jim. You just gotta get a little more lit. Yeah, so we find time to have some fun. But yeah, what was your other question?
Oh, what's your opinion on the bees?
On the bees? Like the colony collapse. I mean, it sucks. I'm not happy about it. There's a lot. We got a lot of change we need to make in the world. Like,
this is everybody in this room, like, thank you for helping us to not destroy ourselves. The bees is one thing, you know, I stand with unioned bivalves is another thing. Do you guys know my unioned bivalve campaign? I made a Tumblr post where I publicly admitted recently, and this is being recorded, that I don't like pandas. And I'm going to say that with authority. I do not like pandas. I'm done with pandas. Pandas is like the face of like these conservation issues, like, and pandas are kind of like they're selecting themselves out of the world. Like they're not adapting, and so much money and time and energy and funding and support and commercialism goes to just saving the panda that doesn't even want to exist. They don't
Including one thing that scientists have actually made is panda pornography to try and get pandas interested in mating.
Yeah. Think about the amount of time and grants and funding that like these two scientists are like, okay guys, we gotta get these pandas to like hook up. What are we gonna do? He's like, I don't know, we better spend 6 months writing a massive multi-million-dollar grant and we're gonna record some panda porn. Like, what was the thought behind that? And at the same time you have
To be fair, it's very tasteful.
some guy like pizza, like I don't understand. This is really inappropriate. Sorry. Oh my god. Good ball. Yeah, so you have that extreme where like people are making panda porn for pandas, and the panda doesn't want to exist. If we had left the panda alone, they would have selected themselves out of the biosphere generations ago.
Well, and also deforestation.
Yeah, and deforestation.
I mean, you know, other things.
Yeah, other things would impact it. But so you have that. You have like people who want to stand with the panda, and people who support panda conservation and research. But then you have unioned bivalve, and it's not just one kind. You know, it's like a clam, essentially, a freshwater clam, and there are like 130 different species of unioned bivalves, and 75 of them are endangered or extinct in the last 50 years. Unioned bivalves are naturally occurring filter feeders. So they're in our freshwater lakes and rivers and streams, and the way that they process food is that they intake water and then they release it after they filter through it, and then it's clean. Like, they have absolutely no negative impact on humans. But because of like pollution and human impact, and also like the Japanese pearl industry, they were farming these unioned bivalves by like massive tons, and now they're going extinct. And now our rivers and our streams are becoming polluted, and now we have to invest in money to try and come up with machinery or industry that's going to clean the rivers and streams. And it's like, why don't we just stop killing all the clams? But nobody cares about the clam. People care about the panda. Because the clam isn't a sexy animal. You know, it's not cute. You can't, it's not like Portlandia, like put a bird on it. It's like, you can't put a clam on anything. People are clamoring. Get it? Coming back to the bees is like, yes, I care about the bees, I care about the clams, I care about the long-tailed duck die-off. Like, there are a lot of things that like keep me up at night, and like I don't know what to do about it, but I know I'll keep making episodes about it. And you know, Dimetrodon's not a dinosaur, like other successful campaigns. So I feel bad about the bees. Yeah.
I'm like that one kid in my class who, whenever I raise my hand, it's like, oh no, not again.
That's okay, that was me too.
I was going to ask you, what advice do you have for teenagers, especially females, about like getting into the biological field and like trying to find opportunities in terms of dealing with that hatred that comes from beavers?
Do it. just don't. I mean, haters gonna hate. You know, that my hair's stuck in my dress, and I got caught up with it. You know, I didn't have a lot of like support or encouragement to pursue the sciences when I was in high school, and many of you, if you watched like the ranks, you probably know that. Like, I studied art because there wasn't like science club for girls. Like, there were Girl Scouts when I was a kid. My mom wouldn't let me join Girl Scouts because she thought that I should have the opportunity to build fires and do that kind of thing, or like what the Cub Scouts were doing, but I couldn't do that because I was a girl and I was going to sell cookies and learn how to sew. And I'm not saying those things aren't practical skills, but I wanted to learn how to start a fire, and I couldn't. So, I don't know where I was going with that, other than like... Women in science. Thank you. Yeah, women in science. So, like, I I think we need to find those kind of opportunities that exist for young women, and there are more of them in high schools and like middle schools, and there are different campaigns trying to encourage women from a younger age to get into those roles. But I think it comes down to having like good positive role models too. Like, I talk about this a lot. Like, I travel around the country and give talks about women in science and women in STEM, and I always refer to my #1 hero, Miss Valerie Frizzle. Because growing up, yeah, Miss Frizzle. By the way, are you guys excited for the new Magic School?
Reboot, yeah! Woo!
So I talk, and I'll tell you guys this story. It's a story I've told before. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself. When I was a kid, I had Miss Frizzle. Like, in all of like the PBS sphere of male role models, you had, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and Carl Sagan and like all of these like great, dynamic, really engaging, fantastic science communicators and educators. And I thought they were all great, and I really enjoyed watching their shows. But I couldn't aspire to grow up to be a black astrophysicist. Like, that wasn't in the cards for me. It's not like I could see Neil Tyson and be like, I'm gonna do that. But I saw Miss Frizzle, and I was like, yeah, Miss Frizzle, like, I love these adventures that she takes her classes on, and then they go inside the human body, and they go to the edges of the outer space, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to be Miss Frizzle. And then I had this very kind of crushing moment when I was 12 years old where my family and I took a trip to San Francisco, and while we were there, my mom asked if we wanted to go to Lily Tomlin's stand-up routine. And Lily Tomlin, who I knew at the time, was the voice of Miss Frizzle on the Magic School Bus, and I was like so excited. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna go see Miss Frizzle. Lily Tomlin is a comedian. Like, she does stand-up comedy, and she does adult humor. Like she's probably joking about panda porn. Probably not, actually. But, so I don't know what my mom was thinking when she took me as like a 12-year-old to this thing, but like, I realized about 10 minutes into the stand-up routine, not that Lily Tomlin's not hilarious, because she is, but I realized pretty quickly she wasn't going to be talking about the Magic School Bus at all. And then it was like, kind of left, and I kind of felt weird for like years, for like an entire decade of my life went by. And I was just like, where I realized that Miss Frizzle isn't real. Like, there's no human, real-life equivalent of Miss Frizzle. And how disappointing to like look back at my childhood and be like, man, if there had just been one. If there had just been like one popular science female role model in the media that I could have looked up to and aspired to be, maybe I would have started studying science a little earlier, rather than trying to like catch up in the last, 18 months of my life. So I think there needs to be more of us. There needs to be more positive female role models studying science, doing research, and we got to put ourselves out there because, you know, it's an awfully white male-dominated field out there, and you're totally excluding 50% of the population. So, hey, it's nice of you. Yeah, that's my answer stick. Yeah, there's so many questions. How do you Okay.
So it seems like you have a pretty free range inside museums. Is there anywhere that's forbidden?
Oh yeah. The human remains. We can't film in the human remains room.
Yeah. Or like baby monkeys in jars. Yeah, that's a little upsetting.
There's like
I mean, you kind of don't want to see some of that stuff.
Yeah, and some of it is just like, the only reason we would put it out is to be sensationalist, and we try to avoid sensationalism. Also, like, you know, being culturally like sensitive to the fact that like this was a person, and their family might still be alive, and you know, you wouldn't want to put that. And we're not just talking about skeletal remains. We're talking about like Field Museum has a collection of shrunken heads that were on public display until like the 60s, and Barack Obama has said
his favorite exhibit.
Yeah, it was his favorite exhibit, the human shrunken heads. Probably not going to put human shrunken heads on the brain scoop, not for a while. So there's that, and then I mean there are other rooms that have like high security that like we have to be with somebody who has to call security, say like, hey, this is curator, you know, XYZ, we are outside of like the gold room. It's called the gold room. You know, they got to call in, and then we have to get permission to get in there, and then we have to tell people how long we were in there, and there's cameras and motion sensors. So like, you know, we're protecting the world's artifacts and treasures, and security is like really important.
But there's really not a ton of stuff that we can't do at the field, as long as like we make a compelling case to the scientists that we're working with, why we're interested. You know, everyone's game for it, which is an amazing place to work. The type of like encouragement we get from everyone.
Oh yeah. People like us, I think. It's good. We've been helpful to a lot of researchers, so. Yeah. In the stripy shirt. Yeah.
I was wondering how much, what's the time period in which you film? Because I know you probably don't film every day. So like, when do you like how often do you film?
Tuesday mornings are good for me. Like, it took me a year and a half to realize that I filmed my best episodes on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah, I mean, it really varies. Like, some weeks, I mean, we might shoot 3 episodes in a week just to stagger out, build up kind of a queue so I can start editing and doing stuff. But then also you have to remember there's a lot of pre-production that goes into it. Talking with the scientists, if we're interviewing a scientist, especially talking with them, making sure the research is sound. You know, Emily writes scripts. I mean, we're working on the Brain Scoop every day, more than 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And
including weekends.
Including weekends, for sure.
Which is, yeah, why we moved. Do you guys know we moved our production schedules? We're doing an episode every other week. We gotta find time for the softball team.
But it's also just finding time to like keep the research sound and adding, you know, when Emily brought me on, one thing that I said that I want to do is like incorporate more museum archive and more footage so that like when Emily's talking about something, you, the viewer, you're actually seeing it and experiencing it. And I love the Brain Scoop when I came into it, I was just like, there's one thing I want more of is to like see this stuff.
Yeah,
And
you know, if we're talking about ants, we're not going to go get a stock footage picture of an ant. We're going to go find the ant and you know, use that. Some of the footage we can't, like we don't have inherently footage of tiger beetles racing, but we incorporate that. And it's just a way to like, the field has like the 4 collections of like geology, anthropology, botany, and zoology, but within that we also have library archives and photo archives and then the digital, the other archives, you know, the other stuff. So it's like integrating those into the episodes is just as important as using the stuff in zoology or geology. So yeah, we have a pretty quick turnaround for some stuff. Like the science, like like the dead animals, where'd you get all those dead animals episode? That was like, I wanted to move on that. Like this was breaking news in the natural history museum world, and like we don't make breaking news very often. And I mean, just like outside of our own community. So I knew this article was going to elicit a response from the public, and I knew other, you know, news outlets were going to pick it up, and I knew that they probably weren't going to get all their facts straight. And I was like, we gotta make an episode about it. So we did, and that was like a week after, you know, the response from the 111 scientists out, like kind of irritated scientists. And then, you know, we made our episode, and it went fine, and people, they understood it, and it was very encouraging. And months later, NPR writes up their story about it, and the comment section is enough to like, yeah. And I think that was my whole interpretation of the comments, because people are like, museums shouldn't be killing stuff. That's wrong. And it's just like, that is what the general public kind of got out of NPR's rendition of that story. So in that case, like, we wanted to get ahead of that.
So like when that video came out, I mean, you know, a couple days of research, 1 day of shooting, converting the footage, 2 days of editing, and then the video's up.
But that was an easy one, because it's like the most difficult part of that was like me doing the script.
Right.
You know, it's not like we had to go on a major expedition for that.
Totally, which those things are coming up.
They're coming soon.
We're going fossil digging next week.
In Wyoming. Looking for a fish fossil! With the president of the Field Museum. It's gonna be awesome. Can you guys imagine, like, it's like the president of a university, or it's like, you know, your typical kind of like, this is being recorded, so I'm gonna be really careful about it. Just like older gentlemen, just like older business gentlemen. It's like to get him camping in Wyoming, wearing a funny hat, and breaking up rocks, looking for fossils. It's like, it's gonna be amazing. I'm really excited about it. Yeah. There are questions. I don't want to alienate that part. Yeah. The most challenging aspect? Golly. Administration. But most because it's like that's really not an exciting answer at all. It's I guess learning how to function as a YouTuber in a very traditional industry. You know, the Field Museum has really stepped up to the plate and like tried to move into the 21st century compared to a lot of other natural history museums, in that they're really embracing like new media and new technology and YouTube, and we got a non-staff YouTuber, and like this is awesome. We have our in-house production crew. It's great, but people who have worked at the museum for like 20 or 30 years they don't know about YouTube. Like they don't get the broader impact. They don't get like that these numbers are associated with individual people and how you manage those cultures and those interactions and audience. They like I just go on. It's a very new thing for a museum to do this. So they have some hesitations about some stuff, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you would like to get them on board with certain ideas or projects, and because they're traditionalists, which is fine because it's worked for.
But I mean, I will say that like in the year that you've been there to this point, so many people believe in what you're doing there and like want to be a part of it.
Oh, thanks.
Which is great. And like for a storied 100-year-old institution to do that, that's pretty uncommon. And like we both feel incredibly lucky to be at the Field.
Oh yeah.
Just because everyone's
we couldn't do this at any other museum.
No.
Ever.
Or like any institution or any like old media thing. Like this is one of a kind.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the world's only chief curiosity correspondent. Really, and it's not just because we made up a funny job title. It was like I'm really unique in having this position at the
business
Field.
card says.
It does, yeah. It says McNamara, chief curiosity correspondent. But Tom's right. Like we couldn't do this at any other museum, like in the world. No, they wouldn't. There's just so much in having to like accept us and give us the creative freedom that we have. And yeah, it was a tough year. It was new and it was exciting, and it's been great. I'm getting derailed a little bit, but yeah.
This actually follows on that. Brain Scoop really brings the Field Museum out to more people. I work at a really struggling, very, very small museum and trying to use kind of social media to reach out. And I was just wondering if you've gotten any feedback from your membership and development staff that maybe Brain Scoop is bringing people and their lovely money to the museum.
I don't have any like direct statistics. That kind of thing is really difficult to quantify, and that's like how do we do that? How as an institution do we kind of measure the scalable impact of having the Brain Scoop? Because like you said, yeah, we get a ton of views on the video. Well, not a ton. We get views on the videos. We get a lot of views on the videos. But how does that translate to on-site visits? And if we're not like stopping everybody at the door, being like, hey, have you heard about the Brain Scoop? Like we're never really gonna know that. I think it's bringing a younger demographic to the museum. We've got what is it that Richard said? We've got the 4th grader and his parents and his grandparents. Like that's
those that like locked down, but don't have like teenagers people in their 20s and 30s really locked down. And the Brain Scoop has done a lot to bring those folks in. I mean, even when I was interviewing for the job and I was out at the Field Museum, we were walking around, you were showing me around, like teenagers, folks our age were like coming up to Emily being like, I love the Brain Scoop, I came to Chicago today because of you. At first I was like, you set this up.
Yeah,
But I mean, that has continued to happen. Whenever we're like pushing our production card around, folks come up to Emily and just like, very respectfully, they're just like, I just want to say like, you inspire me, I love the show, I am here because of you right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't track that, but that's happening every day, and that's why I always tell like our higher ups there.
I'm excited to get a new member who's younger than 60, so.
Yeah.
My bar is set really low.
So yeah, I take that very seriously because honestly, the people, like I mentioned before, the people in this room, like we are inciting change in the world, and it is on us to make positive, informed decisions and think critically about this planet that we share and how we interact with it and how we understand it. And if we're not getting people our age, like the age of everyone here, then what's going to happen in 20 or 30 years? Like if we continue to let sources like NPR, and I have nothing against NPR, I have a family that works at NPR and I love NPR, but if we're leaving our science communication up to media outlets like that and relying solely on that, we're missing out on such a better interpretation of the same kind of subject matter. So it's really important to me that we continue to do this and we continue to appeal to this audience because we need critical thinkers in this world. So, yeah, but I don't know how to quantify it. Yeah.
I got to relate, going sorry if anybody already asked her this, but as someone who's obviously very interested in evidence and observation for very limited things, how do you deal with people who don't believe in evolution?
How do I deal? I deal with it poorly. I don't even have a reaction. I don't run into it very often, to be honest. People coming to the Field Museum, there are people who leave like little pamphlets in our Evolving Planet exhibition that is like, did you know the world was created in 6,000 years? I'm like, I doubt that. I doubt that. I don't think, nobody's that efficient, you know? Just didn't happen.
I mean, I saw some comments on the Dimetrodon episode that were questioning how long that thing had been around.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's sort of like how, I treat like climate change deniers. I mean, this is fact, this is evidence, we go on.
Yeah, that's kind of like, we have a no-nonsense policy about it. Evolution is fact. Like, that is something I believe in, and I know that that statement in itself is controversial. They're like, well, it's a theory, you support it, but it's like, that comes down to like people having a poor interpretation of the word theory. Like gravity is a theory, but we know gravity is a thing, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting, we'd be floating around, nothing would exist. There would be a fine layer of water surrounding the whole planet and nothing would have ever grown or existed. Like that, because thank you, gravity. I think about evolution and how we're talking about evolution in the same kind of way, is that literally no nonsense about it. I'm working on it. Yeah.
How was your transition from an art background into the sciences, like education-wise? Like, how did you get into the master's program, and did you kind of review mathematics and basic biology, or was it, you had that experience from like hands-on in the zoological museum that you just transitioned pretty easily?
Yeah, I'm a tactile learner, and that's not something that I learned about myself until it was far too late. Like, I learned by touching and seeing, interacting, and pointing out, and it's like when you have those highlights magazines, like the what if, like compare and contrast the things in this image, and you look between the two, like, that is how I learn, is that comparing and contrasting, and that translates so well to learning about biology and anatomy in a zoological museum. Like, you could have a graph of a cat skull and have all the different bones like outlined and pointed out and with, labeled or whatever. I wouldn't retain even half of that information, but you give me a cat skull, and I can like move it around my hands, you can feel the teeth, and you can like kind of wiggle them around, and you can like see the little sutures on the bone, and you want to hold it up to the light, and you want to like put it underwater, and you want to put it in vinegar, and you can do that, and it turns it into
This is why I don't let Emily cast it.
I'm like, I really like your temporal, I can feel that, and the cat's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I like your diaphragmatic large. It's like, I look at people and I see your inside. And I got that from my art background, from looking at a landscape and being like, I want to paint that landscape, how am I going to paint that landscape? From looking at something and being like, how do I translate this image in front of me, a three-dimensional thing, onto a two-dimensional plane? And like, that kind of like looking at relatedness between objects, like if you have a horizon line, where are things converging on the horizon line, and really having to think about it critically, like those same critical thinking skills are how I learn science. And so I don't know where we went wrong when we took the A out of STEM, or out of STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. There needs to be an A in there. And I think we're setting people up for a little bit of disappointment if we're not also encouraging them to pursue art in the same way they pursue science. Like, we have this dichotomous split. Either you're a left brain thinker or you're a right brain thinker. You're an arts person or you're a science person. Those things don't exist. They just don't. So I believe really strongly in incorporating like how we study art into how we learn science. Because they're one and the same. They really are.
Yeah, and like in the insect division at the field, there are several people that came to the museum there that had art background, that were scientific illustrators, were learning to be that, and now they're after falling in love with their study, now they're getting their PhDs and they're becoming scientists. So you're absolutely right that like art and science are totally connected.
I think I know more former art majors at the Field Museum than I know science majors. Because you just need those kind of skills. Like insect pinning that's an art form. Taxidermy, that's an art form. And you get the people who are best at it have a background in art. So I don't know where that misconception came from that like left brain thinkers are scientists and everybody else is in the humanities, but it's not true. Yeah. You guys want to hit a taxidermy?
Yes.
I don't know if I'll remember all of it. It was a year ago or more that we filmed it. Okay, so picture it. This guy. His name is Wilhelm Malm. He is super into whales. He believes that there's a new species. He lives in Sweden, so he's been watching whales his entire life. He's just a little bit obsessed with them. He's got this hunch that there's a new species of whale that he spotted, and he wants to get it, and he wants to study it, and he wants to taxidermy it. And he was also a prolific writer. He was the kind of person who would write down every last detail of their day. And so this is how we have so much documentation of the story. So Wilhelm Malm puts out a call to these fishermen, and he says, if you see this kind of whale, let me know. Like, I want it. And do whatever you have to do in order to kill it for me. And like, I need this whale. And so these two brothers are fishing off the coast a little farther north than where he is. And they find one of these whales. And they decide, what we're going to do is we need to like kill it. So they run their boat into it, and then they're like, this thing's going to tip our boat over. I don't remember the exact details on how they got it to shore, but they eventually beached it, but it wasn't dead. And this is when Wilhelm Malm enters the story. He finds out about this whale up there, and slowly dying on the beach, and he's like, I gotta go see it. He takes a boat up there, and he writes this amazing passage where he's like standing over this whale. And we're not talking like a wee whale, we're not talking about like a puppy-sized elephant whale. We're talking about like a blue whale. This is the largest mammal in the world. And he's like, I don't know, I want to take this in the museum. And so he's standing over this thing, like, kind of probably being dwarfed by it, and its eye is looking at him. And the eye is panicked, and it's swiveling around in its skull, and he takes a spear, and he stabs the eye out, and he talks about how this blood is like spewing everywhere, and it's like a really intense story. I should have like had a grosometer. So anyway, now he's got this whale. The whale died, and things start to decompose pretty quickly. Like that sets in almost immediately, and he's like, we gotta move this thing. It's like massive, but he's like 60 miles away from where he needs to have this whale. So they have like a 4-boat barge that has to come up where they put the dead whale on it, and then they ferry it back down to the port. And that took like a week. I don't know. So this thing is like slowly decomposing the entire time. They get it to the port, and then he's like, well, we can't move it into town because it weighs 1 million pounds, so what are we going to do with it? And he knows that he obviously cannot cut up this thing or dissect it on his own, so he needs a bunch of butchers and their apprentices and their cousins and their brothers and everybody else to help him out. He doesn't have any money to pay them, but he does know a guy who owns a brewery. So he agrees to pay them in beer. So you can imagine you have like 30 like rough and tumble butcher guys, and they're getting paid in alcohol, and it's like a hot coastal day in Sweden, and this.
That's what you pay me.
That's not.
Sometimes.
So he's got these kind of like drunk butchers that are helping him dissect this whale, and this thing stinks. I mean, it's bloated. It's been decomposing for like a week or more at this point, and it's the mid-1800s. This is like 10 years after Moby Dick was written and came out. So people kind of have this like fear and like massive interest in whales, and it's like the talk of the town. They don't have the internet. They don't probably have high literary rates or literacy rates, so everybody starts to come out and watch this process of these drunk fishermen dissecting a rotting whale, which is exactly what they do. People started, and then somebody's like, I gotta capitalize on this, so they start charging people like $1 a day to just stand and watch, like, that's pretty interesting. Watch this whole process happen while everybody's getting drunk and like they're in injuries, and it's just like, it sounds like the most amazing thing. Oh, I forgot to mention this aspect of it. When Will the mom finally got the whale to the shore, he climbed up on top of it and gave like a 2-hour spiel about the history of whales, standing on the back of a dead whale. That's this guy. I would love to hang out with him. Yeah. He's on my list with Carl Agley. Put those two in a room and just see what happens. So anyway, so they're cutting up this whale, and he gets it in his mind that he wants to taxidermy it and put it in a museum. Nobody has ever done anything like this before. This is like totally unprecedented, so he's got to be really innovative because it's never been done before. So they finally get this thing cut up, and they have the skin, and they start stretching it, and they taxidermy it on the shore. Like, I don't know how they did it. They stretched the skin out, they made like an armature for the inside of it, and then he had the idea, like, well, we've got a pretty big whale here, we've got to get it to the museum, but before we do that, we should like have a way for people to get inside of the whale. That seems like a good idea. So they take this thing to the museum, they have to take out an entire wall, and there's archived like photographs of all of this, like where they cut out just like a big chunk in the side of the wall, and they're like loading this massive whale just like swimming into the museum. But my favorite part of this story is that he made a crank system in the mouth so that you can like literally you can crank open the mouth of this whale, and they put steps, and you can walk inside of this dead taxidermied whale.
Oh my God.
And what's even better than that, they're like, well, you should be able to do something once you get inside of the whale. So why don't we set up a cafe? So that's what they did. The museum thought it would be a good idea. They put us some chairs and like a table and like maybe wallpaper the inside and like hang up a photo on the wall. And they had somebody staffing and manning it. You could go and you can have your coffee and your tea and your crumpet or whatever they eat in Sweden, your lingonberries, and you can enjoy it in the inside of a blue whale. And they have this thing open and accessible up until like the 1920s and 1930s. And the reason that they had to stop allowing people to go inside of the Whale Cafe, which is like the best sentence I've ever said in my life, is that museum goers were getting a little bit frisky inside of the whale, and a couple was caught in the act in the inside of the whale. So they closed it up, and it could no longer go in there on a day-to-day basis. However, they do open it up on National Whale Day every year, and you can go and enjoy the Whale Cafe. So this is in Gothenburg, Sweden, and if I ever get married, oh my gosh, it's going to be in the inside of that whale. So that's Wilhelm Long's story, and we filmed that episode like a year and a half ago, and it just never got edited. I don't know why. Oh, I also, there's things I keep remembering about now. They were going to take the whale on tour, because they decided, well, it's Sweden. I mean, not everybody can get to Sweden. Why don't we take it on its European voyage? So they, tried to get it over to Europe and take it to like France and Germany, and then some war started. They ran out of funding. I don't know why. Like, I would have paid to do that. And so it didn't get to finish its European voyage. But, and then long story short, it wasn't a new species anyway. It was just like a juvenile blue whale. So, all that, jeez. Anyway, we have about 5 minutes left, a little less than 5 minutes. Apparently this has flown by. What are your last burning, most need-to-know questions? Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite memory from the film, Brain Scoop?
My favorite Brain Scoop memory? I don't know. Everything's pretty memorable. I need to think about this for a second. I don't know. It's like the filming process is a lot of fun. So I have a lot of like fond memories of Tom and I just like totally joking around.
Lots of laughing.
There's lots of laughing that happens, which is great. I really like our expeditions, and we haven't even got to talk about our expeditions. Like standing knee deep in bat guano in a cave and being like inundated with insects and stench and ammonia, like that was pretty much the best thing I've ever done. It was disgusting. I was not at all prepared for this expedition that we went on. I didn't know what we were doing. I'm covered in live bats that are like crawling all over me, and I'm just like, this is incredible. I'm standing there in knee deep in bat guano and being like, a year ago I was painting landscape pictures. Barista. I'm like, this is amazing. So like that's my life. I feel single day, where I'm like, this is just unreal. I mean, I feel like I've gotten stupider since I started the brain scoop, since I'm way worse at being able to talk about my life, because it's like, man, it's pretty amazing. We're going to Peru in October for 3 weeks with our conservation group. So essentially, these are people who are saving rainforests. They're writing appeals to the Peruvian government and setting aside millions of hectares of rainforest. And we're going with them. We're going to film.
It's going to be insane.
It's going to be insane.
We're going to be on like small planes, small helicopters, boat rides.
Yeah, they're like, so I think it's going to be one thing. We got a helicopter here. Yeah, you're cool with that? Are you scuba certified? We're going to be venomous snakes. Do you have a rabies vaccine? I'm just like, I cannot wait for this. I'm getting the 1 minute sign. I'll take one more question. Yeah.
So I'm from the radio.
Woo, me too.
I was really excited when I heard you on the calendar episode and you brought in like the little girl. Like, what was that like talking with Dad?
That was awesome. I've been trying to work with Radiolab and Robert and Tom knows Jad for like a year at that point, and I kind of had this secret desire. I was like, before the end of the year, I really want to be on Radiolab, but I didn't tell anybody. And that episode went up on December 31st of last year. Robert Curl just called me out of nowhere one day, and he's like, hey, so do you know where I can get a 380 million year old fossilized coral? I'm like, I think I know a guy. I think we can work something out. So I called Paul Mayer, who's our invertebrate zoologist. I was like, yo, Paul, you heard of Radiolab? He's like, no. And I was like, I know. I was like, what? And I said, we've been, we have like 24 hours to get to the WBEZ station on Navy Pier, and we need to cut up a fossilized coral. And he's like, oh, we can do that. He was such a good sport about it. He totally was. He's like, yeah, we got something with no dad. We can go cut it up on there. And then we bring this thing, and he's got like an angle grinder. And he brings it in the studio, and the studio lady's like, no, you cannot cut this thing up in the studio. They have like very nice radio equipment, and this thing was going to, so we went into a garage, like where people were smoking, and we're like, I'm just going to cut up this 380 million year old fossil with an angle grinder. People are like, that's pretty cool. And all the while we have like Jad and Robert, and they're talking to us like live, and I'm talking about like what it is that we were doing, and Paul said the most amazing comment after it was open, and he like was spritzing water on it, and you could see the lines in the coral, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing. And Paul said, this is the first time the inside of this coral has seen light in 380 million years. This is the first time human eyes have ever been set upon this thing. And like that was like, oh my God, like Paul, you're amazing. And it was fun, and it was a really cool experience to have, and this has been awesome. And I'm really bummed that we're out of time right now, too. There's a clip. But I'm doing some other panels and some signing. I'm signing tonight from like 4 to 6, and I really hope that you guys will come and say hi, and I can sign stuff, and we can talk, and you can ask me more questions. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really wouldn't. Neither of us would. Tom especially. So like this, everything that I do on my work is because of you. So I'll never repay that.